Stand and sing of Zambia, proud and free, land of work and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for the right. We've won freedom's fight, oh, one strong and free. Bonse tulivana b'Afrika, uwasena minwa na lesa, nomba bonse twendele pamo, twalilubula, twikatane bonse. Jingajo mwencho tulilila, mbule mualumu no mujisi, mbulisi wazembwa uluga Zambia, omubotu tonse tuswangane. Timtamande Mungu watu adalize, Zambia, Zambia, okasuka, pasipande bendera yatu, pasipande bendera yatu, Zambia, timtamande ugozi ipavu. Praise be to God. Praise be. Bless our great nation. Zambia, Zambia, free when we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one strong and free.
The journey started in 1924. In 2021, the legendary journey began.
He's mighty.
Tiende PAMODZI, mutima ummo. Tiende PAMODZI, mutima ummo. Kaunda mwaya mwaya, matushahe. We will miss you, we love you, till we meet again.
Kaunda ilelo twalila uwumi wenu ifwe na Zambia, mwalitupa ubuntungwa amasikulu nevipatala notwampa nitwena ala Kaitin filon todo le fiancé.
Zambia tiende
PAMODZI,
tiende Zambia tiende
PAMODZI, ntimtima.
Mwali tu sansabika, fwebe na Zambia, mufialo mutwenda.
We one family, we are one Zambia, one nation. Peace, love, unity is what you taught us. We mourn you, super king.
We cry you when we mourn you, yet we celebrate your life, liberation of many nations. You played a role, you might have gone, your spirit lives. We'll carry on your legacy. One Zambia, one nation. And some will sing generation to generation. You'll always be in our hearts, and we thankful.
Kumakuma samba, kuyokabanga, Batata wa Kaunda balitweva tende pamozi ndi mutima umozi. Let's love one another as brothers and sisters.
You gave us a hero in you. You gave us a vision. Look at the way the world is celebrating you. You are a superhero. We promise you to carry on. You're richer than words. Oh yeah. Thank you, Super Ken.
Good evening, people. Good evening, people. This is Fraser Mushibe, talking from Gray's Chafford 100 in UK. I'm joining in to celebrate the life of one heroic president in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, who passed away almost 2 weeks now, I think, and lived from 1924 right up to 2021. At the ripe age of 97. What is my authority? No authority whatsoever, but I will reminisce with you the experiences I lived through. I was born in 1968, which was 4 years after independence, and it was a glory days and years, the first transition. In the first kind of republic, we talk of 1964 to about 1971, 72 there, when we had democracy and different parties participating. The way I will break up my discussion in memory of the late president is to talk about the politics, talk about tribalism and how he went about, resolving that. And then I'll also talk about the economics, the economy development, how he handled it with his team. So on the tribalism, which is quite topical now, the TIYENDE PAMODZI and the TIYENDE PAMODZI was to engulf everyone and build up the spirit of togetherness, that we should develop the nation together. And the One Zambia One Nation was a theme he picked up from the early days because of the various tribal alignment that the politicians at the time were there. We had the great Nkumbula from Southern Province. We had the Mainza Chonas Southern Province. We had the likes of Kamanga, Reuben Kamanga from Eastern Province, and was also a vice president. And then we had over the Simon Kapwepwes. They were very, very strong leadership. And in one remarkable time, I think it was 1968, at one of the UNIP gatherings, the President Kenneth Kaunda, resigned. Why did he resign? It was there were elections going on within UNIP, and there were factions. Those who were supporting Kamanga, those who were supporting Simon Kapwepwe, and all that kind of thing. And it was based on region. That's what they were doing. So he got very, very upset as a Christian and everything, and trying to keep everything together. He resigned, and they all had to go back and beg him, please come back, come back. And that's how he came back. The elections went on, and that's how Simon Kapwepwe won. The late Simon Kapwepwe was his personal childhood friend, and they grew up together in the struggles. That saw Simon Kapwepwe becoming the vice president of the country until right up to, I think, 72, 73, 72 thereabout, I think, when the country was changed into a one-party state. What did the one-party state bring about? This was obviously the end of democratization, as we knew it, different parties participating. And the excuse that was used was that the different factions of party, which were more aligned mainly on a tribal basis, was going to destroy our nation. So we needed a stronger political party, one looking at it. And obviously the ideologies that were there then was the aspect of the Soviet Union. Then we had the West and the East. So you either belong to the capitalists, which is the Americans and so forth, and then you had the East, which was mainly Russia, the USSR, and then whichever way the country went in terms of the support that they wanted, that's where they got most of the donor aid. So if it was Russians, then you'd receive most of the aid from there. And also the ideologies would come in from that. So when humanism was coming in, it followed in the sense of more the Chinese way of living under the chairman Mao. These were people who inspired the leadership at that time. So when we talk about the leadership, we're talking about the Julius Nyereres of this world. We're talking about Kaunda, the Mugabe. It was much later in the 1980s. But from Ghana also, you had the leaders. These were the Pan-Africanism type of things, and they inspired and wanted to form some ideology that was not capitalism, but more socialist. So you have in Tanzania, Ujamaa, where people are supposed to be growing from growth, whatever. And then you had Zambia, under Kaunda, we started having humanism, which was everyone, coming out to respect the human person who should be the center of everything. And so everything evolved in a way that we were supposed to develop, with the state being at the center of that development. And unlike the West, which was capitalist and individualistic, the type of development was supposed to be, looking at it in a more what's the word I can use? More unifying way of development, where nobody is left behind. But as history has proved, those ideologies of socialism fell on the wayside for many other aspects of shortcomings. Mostly not because of the ideology, but mainly because of the way our economies were placed. For example, Zambia was mainly a copper producing country, which it still is. And then we had a high dependency on imports of produce to support our industry, of which the main import of produce was oil. Oil was the main driver behind everything. And then when we had the first fall of the oil sharp prices in the 73, it saw all countries now running up to IMF. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the Kaunda days. So I've spoken about the first term of, which is called, I think, more or less like the First Republic, where you have the multipartism from 64 to 72, 73, thereabout, the one-party state, which ran through right up to 1991, when Kaunda got voted out quite by a large, huge margin, which was quite unexpected for him, but it did happen that way. Now, let's talk of the other. I spoke about the tribalism and how the One Zambia One Nation came into. It is looking at the 73 tribes. So how best can we do this to ensure that everyone is more unified? So from the leadership perspective, he kept on roaring the people who were like the vice president, and then we had the Secretary General of the party. It would either be one period, it would be somebody from the southern province, Tonga. In another period, it would be a Lozi person. So you had Lumina Mundia becoming Prime Minister, or Masheke. Mainza Chona did become, and then you had the late Malimba, not Malimba, what is the name I'm talking about? You have from different parts. Every time it was a different person coming in. The longest serving at the highest echelon was the late Grey Zulu, who was seen as his best friend. He was always in the top 3 position at any given time. The last position he held, I think, was called, Secretary, not really, Secretary to National Secretary, I forget the name anyway. But this did help in terms of, unifying the nations, and the way we lived like on the Copper Belt. We never spoke about things like tribe. In fact, tribe was never even mentioned. It was you had one unifying language, and when you go in the separate homes, you didn't speak your Tonga, your Lozi, your Bemba, but everywhere else on the Copper Belt, I think we all spoke Bemba anyway, and that unified us. There was less tolerance on people being tribal, and that was foremost what Kaunda did. The second aspect that I would look at and talk about the late president is how patriotic his leadership and the people around him were. I don't see that very much in any of the leaders that we have today. And anyone can lay into me, I mean, that's my personal opinion. Patriotism, these people believed in the development of the country. For example, when Zambia got independence, the match talked about, I think we only had 99 or 100 graduates. So one of the foremost things that they wanted to do is increase the human resource development and get the numbers up for graduates. And so one of the things was to design the University of Zambia, as we know it, the greatest campus. And before that came into being, I think in 1966, 67, thereabout, a lot of people who qualified and had done their Form 5 and so forth were sponsored to go abroad and train. And numerous number of people who had the qualifications and qualified to go abroad for sponsorship, they did that. And all of them, without exception, I think they all came back and fitted in the developing of the country. And the other aspect in terms of the regions of development, and this is throughout the whole period that he ruled, there was no province that was left out in terms of having industries. So what they did as part of their leadership was to look at the strength of each and every province. What is it that is good for, say, for Northwestern Province? Northwestern Province was picked mainly for its very good land in terms of fertility and a lot of fruits. So you had your fruit factories, major, that was built there. In Mansa, you had the Mansa batteries because of the manganese. In Northern Province, I think you had your coffee factories. In Mansa also you had the tea, Kawambwa. You go to, what is this? In Southern Province, you had the Livingston Motor Assembly. Chipata, you had the bicycle factory there. In Western Province, I think it was mainly to do with what I forget the main crop there. But each and every region, there was a balancing there. I think let's have a break and then we'll come back. Just a break for a minute and then we come back. DJ.
Singane kutulo chape. Oh, dati mulale muchibotea.
Tiriro, hecho watushila tiriro. Shikoro, yukele kwewa kisha babuntungo wapokele.
Bangege tulabae agaga. Tulabae.
Na unanifuna ngati unasanga juu. Koma iwe unasanga mukende.
Unity mwaletele mwepo imitundu wingika mushipanga wanu kwa ulaneka patulula. One Zambia One Nation humanism kuwombela pa mwepo.
A dark cloud has befallen Zambia. Dear Lord, help us unite like Kaunda said. One Zambia, One Nation.
From your words.
Abengi, pale, lila masuti. Lilo tata Kaunda wale lile chalo. You are the symbol of peace in Africa. Lesa kupale, utushe muchibote.
Africa leader no mutima ukulu. Lesa pokerela koba shikulu. Ikumbina difita tulelo shava shikulu. Tuli mufilamba fwebe shikulu.
Family mwa hombele. Muno Zambia na mu Africa. Vatotela mwende muno.
We knew this day would come, but we still not ready. We wanna celebrate your life, but our hearts are heavy. Move your swire, but your legacy will live on. The father of the nation, Super Ken, so long.
Zambia, Tanzania, South Africa, yalila. Onse tulelila, Kaunda tusha.
Go our father of the nation. We celebrate your life. We'll greatly miss you. A true Pan-Africanist, father of a nation. Twas Santa Mwane.
Yarira, Africa yarira, abantu yarira.
Zambia, watufundile ukutemwana no kusungana kwa ulo kwa kanikana. One Zambia One Nation.
Ne ubatangalo swalisa neba na bahao. Ndata wasishemu walilato lwakulata keke. Lwakulata keke.
Tiende
What a beautiful, beautiful tribute. That song itself, so wonderful, sensibilizing and everything. So anyway, as I was saying, how patriotic the leadership of President Kaunda was. And what was also very evident was a strong leadership. Now, with strong leadership comes a lot of people would, depending on how you see it, those that were in the front running, some of them got hurt and hurt badly because choices had to be made, and he did not, I'm sure, make those choices easy enough. Along the way, he lost some friends. One of them, from what we were reading and understood, was his friend Simon Kaperpe. At the time he was dying, they were not friends because, I mean, he went and formed his own party. And that aspect, I'm only bringing it in to say that for every one person, including myself, it's not all good or glorifying everything. Even if somebody is dead, yes, ultimately we look at the positive side of a person. And President Kaunda had many sides of positiveness in terms of what the nation of Zambia did get from him and where he got the country to. But there was also some negative side of it, which I would not dwell so much into it, but they're there and we have to accept that they were there. Other forum have actually mentioned it. But as I said, I'm no authority to talk about it, but at least acknowledging that there are other people who have a different view because they personally had a negative impact as a family. Some of them had to run away from the country because of being petrified or being persecuted unfairly. The justice system was also a very stronghold. I remember we had the paramilitary. I don't think they still exist because the paramilitary of the day of the Kaundas was a no-nonsense one. If they unleashed them on the University of Zambia at the time when I was there, from 1986 right up to 86, 87 to 90, you knew that, yeah, these chaps had come. Never the soldiers were never unleashed on us, but the paramilitary, the paramilitary from Kamfinsa mainly would be like the mobile police and all that. It was an interesting time. Let me also talk about the way we used to enjoy our Independence Day, not the way we're doing it now. Everyone would look forward to the Independence Day, the 24th of October, of each year. On those days, as I was growing up, you would go to the welfare centers, and in the abrogated language, we'd call them Olofare, but it was the welfare centers. And interesting enough, these welfare centers were in each and every area that you lived in the country. Wherever it was, there would be a welfare center where people would go commune. Women, they would be doing the knitting dresses or whatever it is. The humanism aspect that was behind all these development was with good intention, and everyone in communities would actually evolve around them, and you had a place where to go. Even in the high density areas, there were Sakilis of this world or Kamchangas and so forth. Over the weekend, there would be a dancing center place where people would come together, and then there would be the Finyaus dancing, and people would just enjoy themselves. All this kind of stopped and ended. The taverns that were there for your chibuku and other liquors, they were everywhere. People had this aspect of communal and communing together. There was, the hardships that were coming on towards the late 70s, early 80s. We still had a good life, and once you start the shortages due to foreign exchange earnings and whatever, you had maybe shortage of your butter, your bread, and you had to line up and queue for things. But amazingly, the exchange rate when President Kaunda was leaving as a president was only about £3, three kwacha to a dollar. 3 kwacha to a dollar. 3 kwacha to a dollar. That's how it was. In the 80s, late 80s, we had a food riot, and this was about 1986. And then we used to have coupons, which every household would be issued with coupon, and this is a way of the government subsidizing the maize and the milling mill so that everyone could afford. So you're issued with coupons, and then you go collect your milling mill from the welfare center and designated places. Then there was a massive announcement that was made by the president that my government, this was after the food routes, and this was, I think, about 87, 88. He told the World Bank and IMF that going forward, Zambia cannot afford to service that debt. And mind you, the debt was only about 4 billion. I think 4 billion it was. And that was quite still a lot, despite the fact that we owned the mines and everything. So he said only 10% was going to go towards debt servicing. And the rest was going to go into revitalizing the economy. So put in to factories, put in back into the mines. And things started happening. Those who were around at the time will remember we had, for the first time, our own drinks, because when we stopped importing Coca-Cola and Fanta. So we had Tarino. And these drinks, if that was not cut short by the MMD government when they came in, now would be enjoying all these super drinks that were there in abundance. Yes, the lifespan of those drinks was short, but like everything, when it started, it was going to improve over time. And obviously, this was not taken too kindly by the Western powers and the IMF, World Bank, and unrest started coming up from that time. Obviously, I won't say much in terms of, because I suspect anyway, the sponsorship of the multipartism mainly came from the Western world, destabilize the country and that kind of thing, to get rid of President who was seen as too much. So towards the end of the 80s, we saw the multipartism coming up in a lot. And in fairness to the president, he just said, okay, fine. He was going to repeal the one state nation to multipartism. And I think he strongly believed he was going to win. And the shock of it, when he lost, it was resounding. But everyone there was a total revolution. But I remember very well, 1991, his outcry. You've given this world, this country to Wakabola, thieves and so forth. You shall remember me. And everyone was excited. But look what has happened. 30 years later, he's a father of the nation, the son of the nation, being mourned by the world. Never has it ever been seen where different countries around Zambia declaring the national mourning to commemorate the death of our president, former president, the first president of the Republic. Why is that so? You will find that in the struggles of South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Angola, Mozambique, all these had a foot in Lusaka. They called Zambia their home. And a lot of our resources were spent helping these countries get their independence. The focus on the President Kaunda and his team was, we can only have development if around us they're all settled and we have peace around us. Zambia being a landlocked country, it could not afford to sit back and not help the other countries get their independence. And that was their focus. Mozambique was another one, and President Machel actually died in a plane crash coming from a meeting in which President Kaunda, being in the frontline state at the time, chairman, I think, had called that there should be peace, because I think Mozambique was about to attack Malawi, who under Kamuzu Banda were supporting the South Africans. I think was supporting the Mozambique SWAPO, who were against President Machel. But anyway, that's another story. So here's a man who, over the 27 years that he ruled the country, he had only one vision, and that vision was to develop the country, to make it, everyone to be able to have a meaningful livelihood. The promise he made when we got independence, that each household should have an egg, milk, and so forth, did not come to pass in the way he saw it, but one could say we did have quite a good production in terms of our agriculture. Was usually having surplus in terms of what was produced, and there was quite a lot to go by. His agriculture policy was so good. We had co-ops in each and every province, where all the farmers, subsistence farmers, would have their crops sold to. All that was stopped. In a tribute to President Kaunda, I think I'd be failing if I did not mention, I think the worst mistake we made upon going into multipartism was to discard everything that was under the UNEP government, to make it look as if nothing was good. Not all was bad. Factories that we privatized and became nothing, that was the hard work of these leadership under President Kaunda. And in hindsight, we should have done a much better job. We should have been able to, the best way is to have those factories and mines being taken over by indigenous Zambians. And that's the only way you can have development, not having foreigners, taking over the privatization, because obviously they're only coming in for the money, and once they get the money, shipped it out, and that's the end. But a Zambian will always know that this is home and I'm going nowhere, and would ensure that the productivity and production of those entities that are taking over will continue living on. And over time, of course, it's a young nation. It's a young nation, and still growing. I mean, when you compare to countries like UK, USA, they've been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So in fairness, we have a long way to go, but the attributes that we should all take from the leadership of these grand men that have led us under Kenneth Kaunda is being patriotic. Patriotism is about giving yourself, being selfless, and thinking about the welfare of everyone else, not yourself, and to enrich yourself. The politicians we have nowadays, the majority of them, with no exception really, they just, it's personal glorifying and about making themselves rich. That's the way it is. The other thing I would also commemorate the leadership of President Kaunda is the free education he gave us. In hindsight, we'd say, oh, we should have been given back. I had this conversation with another friend. I was saying, what should have happened, especially those of us who went to University of Zambia, Kaunda University, free education, sponsorship, and being paid good money to go to school to pay for your food. What looking at the UK system for those who get student loans, similar things should have been developed in countries like Zambia, where those of us that went to university, the money that was spent on us should have been turned into a loan. And when you got employment, not only in government, but anywhere else, and you start earning a certain amount of money, like they do here in the UK, you start paying the loan. And that way it enhances other people to also participate, in the future years to go back to university, because all that needs funding. So we are extremely grateful for the free education that we received, and we should be seen to be, putting back in whichever way we can, either by, contributing a small fund, going to the education system, but there's nothing so defined in which, to follow. What else can I say? I mean, it is sad that he has gone, but it's really a celebration of his life. A celebration of his life, because he lived a good life, and right up to the end, the respect that he's got is amazingly immense. I think everyone might be even surprised, because the way things were 30 years ago when he got out of power, it was like, oh, nothing more will be seen of him. But the whole world is mourning President Kaunda because of the man that he was. Which statesman did he not see? Everyone, from Margaret Thatcher, the Ronald Reagans of this world, you talking about, Queen Elizabeth, all the major leaders you can think of, Kaunda met them. And it was with high respect. It was a mutual respect. It wasn't just like, there's a Zambia country, small country coming in. He commanded a lot of respect everywhere, and he was seen as an equal. And if you see the British government sending First Secretary to come to his funeral, it is to commemorate that type of respect, that there is a man who was equal and did everything. Before I forget, the last thing I would say, Mandela for South Africa, Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda was spot on. So many meetings, private, secret meetings, to ensure that South Africa got the end of apartheid, and also trying to get Mandela out. It is for that reason that when Mandela got out of prison, the first foreign trip he made was to Zambia. At that time, I was at University of Zambia, and we lined up and queued and waved. He came with his lovely daughter, and all of us at the University of Zambia went wild for this beautiful, beautiful daughter. But it was to show respect to the man that had helped South Africa, and it was one way of the late President Mandela to say thank you for helping us and being there for us. So if you didn't know, that's one of the things that that did happen because of this great man. How many? We've got a few minutes. Can we have a small break, and then we'll finish it? I'll wrap it up. Small break, please.
We in Zambia are peaceful people, peace-loving. I challenge anyone to say today here that Zambia is a warmongering nation. We have done all these things in search of peace, but it has to be genuine peace, based on sincere, genuine majority rule. Zambians will be born out of our blood.
TIYENDE PAMODZI DIMTIMA UMODZI TIYENDE PAMODZI DIMTIMA UMODZI TIYENDE DIMTIMA UMODZI Atate Kaunda Tiza Uyewani Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Pumulani mwa mutendere. You fought for the freedom of Zambia. Let us free from our oppressor's hand. So now we can stand and sing for Zambia, proud and free. The history of Africa cannot be complete without your love for her freedom. You inspired hope to all. A humble teacher, you were. Tiende PAMODZI dimtima umro. Tiende PAMODZI dimtima umozi. Tiende PAMODZI dimtima umozi. Tiende dimtima umozi. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Pumbulani mwa mutendere. Chikundi Chanu demonstrated by bringing us together. Your leadership uniting the nation. Diverse languages and one flag. You preached unity to all mankind. Yeah, you preach freedom to all. And for this vision, you were willing to die. For the struggle, you fought for the cause. Oh, we'll remember you as a father of a nation. We'll remember you as we sing Tiende. Tiende PAMODZI dimtima umozi. Tiende PAMODZI dimtima umozi. Tiende dimtima umozi. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Atate Kaunda Diza Kuyewani. Pumbulani mwa mutendere. Atate Tiende. Atate Tiende.
And so, in the last few minutes before we end, I would like to look at his leadership style, which majority of leaders now should emulate. One of the aspects that he was very strong at was he knew what he wanted, and he had very good advisors around him, very, very good advisors, whom he would also listen to. He had good people around him, and he also had policies and procedures that people had to. And one of those was a leadership code. The leadership code was about any person in leadership, or the UNIP leadership. They could not own more than 2 houses. They could only own one farm, and they obviously dependent very much on the government resources. For those who are ministers, governors, and so forth, they were given their house, they had a car, and that kind of thing. But in terms of corruption, it was almost never there because of the strong leadership. And then the institutions he also put in, we had CITET, the Anti-Corruption Commission, and so forth, that was very independent. They were not soldiered on by Kaunda. No. The people who ran those were very, very strong people and idealistic and also very strong-minded. They did not have to be told by Kaunda, oh, can you go after that person? No. They ran the institutions independently. So that was one thing. The leadership code and how independent the institution and respect of those institutions. How should then that reflect on this leadership of today and going forward? And for the leadership code, of course, it's now a multipartism and everyone is free to, it's under capitalism kind of way of things. If they can afford it, they should be able to do it. But we need to have an audit of every politician that is wanting to stand from councillor to councillor, governor, mayor, MP, president, to declare openly what they have. And they should be, ECZ should be actually having this audit where they file everything, and it should be for public viewing to say, yes, this is what I have. It does not make sense how one could have zero amount of money, and then within 5-year term, the multi-millionaires have got several houses. The question to ask is how, why, where is your source of wealth? If you say you're employed as a minister, show me the companies that you had before that has declared all this wealth. That must happen, and nobody should shy away from that. We should demand it as a nation that enough is enough. The stealing that has gone on is too much. The president himself also should not only sit in the backside and say, oh, I've employed a minister of health and therefore everything is being handled. No. There's a time when leadership is required. When UK, we had the COVID scenario still there, Boris had to shackle himself and start leading those press conferences. Yes, he would be there as a prime minister, and you would have the people who are all vested in that topic to talk about it. We expect the president to do the same. We expect leadership at all times. President Kaunda never shied away from any of the press conferences, and he was very articulate. And remember, this is a man who only went up to Form 6, but surpasses most of the people that we've had as president in terms of his thinking capacity, is driven, and wanted to get what they wanted to get. This is the type of leadership we should be all, vying for. It's not impossible. President Kaunda did show it, and nearly all the people under him, the Grey Zulus, the Madimba Mashekes, everyone showed that passion, that leadership for the people, and humility, humbleness. Not only that, but greatness. And this is what we're talking about. It is important that President Kaunda is emulated, not only to celebrate his life, but we should also emulate the life he led, the leadership he showed. He led by example. This is a person who stopped eating any form of meat, became vegetarian from before independence, because he refused to buy meat from a small window, and then it is said he went to buy, to just make a good example of how foolish the system was by then for these butchers that sell the Zambian, the Africans, on a small window. So he decided to buy a big head of a cow, and then he said, all right, you want it. they could not put it through the window. So I said, oh, can you get it from the side? And he said, no, from here. This is where I want to get it from. But anyway, because of that treatment and all that, man said he would never eat meat, and he never ate meat all his life. It may go to show why he lived up to 97. The only surviving of his people around him. Of course, in terms of former leaders, I think we have the Scotta winners of this world, but they are far younger than he was, 1924. We salute his life. I salute his life. I loved Kenneth Kaunda, and on many occasions I've had a lot of arguments where people would be arguing severely against it. They say, oh, my family this, my family that. I said, well, the big picture is he did what he had to do as a leader. And as a leader, you cannot please everyone. And that's what we all have to understand. Unfortunately, some people did lose their lives. And as a leader, at times, those may happen under the name of whatever the president is, but there are also some people who would be saying that doing things in the name of the president, but the president hasn't really sanctioned it. The state and the presidency are two different things. The presidency, when it comes to the presidency, it's people around that protects the presidency, and people have to understand that. So there's all that. But I think my hour is over. I got this information to come and present about an hour and a half before, but I've kind of enjoyed myself talking about the great leader, President Kaunda. I mean, there's a lot to be said. And as I said, it cannot all be good because there's some bad, but in terms of leadership, holistically, President Kaunda nailed it. And if we can have another person coming out who was as patriotic as he was, Zambia can make it to become a very, very rich country. Zambia is a rich country. It's lacking in leadership. And to end it all, it's high time the opposition, whichever the opposition is, they should not only be there to oppose, they should participate in the running of the government, in the running by contributing and, saying, this is how, I think you've done it this way, but this is how we'll do it. And we should be hearing it. The way we hear the Labour and the Conservative, when they debate, Conservative comes up with the policies, Labour will say, yeah, we agree with these things, but these things, we can do it this way. I would like to see that coming up in our nation. We're too small a country of 18 million, thereabout. The resources that we have, we can turn it around. The 30 billion that is said, estimated 30 billion, is nothing. It's nothing in terms of the resources that we have. And in 1 year, we can even pay it off. But we need to hone our resources. We should not be giving it to the foreigners. And that's one aspect that the President Kaunda had. Remember, in 1968, in the economic, what do you call it? I forgot the term they used for it. But in 1968, everything was Zambianized. Yeah, 51% controlling had to be Zambian and so forth. And oh no, these ones will go away. No, things run. And we need to get back to that stage. We should not be giving away too much land, because eventually we shall run out of land. And before you know it, it will be the non-indigenous. Our own Zambians will become foreigners in their own land. Let's look at the policies that the Kaunda government had. And these policies are still there. So on this note, I say bye and thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope as coherent as possible, but then this is just these are my views that I've given. And I celebrate the life of Kaunda in my own way, but we share some of the sentiments with other people. Thank you very much, and bye.
Stand stand, stand, stand. Stand and sing of Zambia, proud and free, land of work and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for the right. We've won freedom's fight, oh, one strong and free. Bonse tulivana b'Afrika, uwasena minwa na lesa, nomba bonse twendele pamo, twalilubula, twikatane bonse. Jinga jomwe ntotulilila, mbule muwalumu no mujisi, mbulisi wazembwa uluga Zambia omubotu tonse tuswangane. Timtamande Mungu watu adalise Zambia, Zambia omasuka pasipande bendera yatu, pasipande bendera yatu Zambia, timtamande ubozi ipavu. Praise be to God. Praise be, bless our great nation. Zambia, Zambia, free men we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one strong and free.